Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. We have a really cool one in tonight. This is a Williams SPACELAB. Not to be confused with SkyLab, it's slightly different. This is a SPACELAB. I've been talking with a gentleman about this particular game for several years now, I believe. We're going to look it up here in a minute and we'll see what I can figure out. But as I remember, he has a company called SPACELAB, and whenever he found out that they made a game called SPACELAB, he wanted to get it to put it in his company. And so he bought one, and it's been fixed up a little bit at some point by the people that he bought it from. But I don't think he ever got it completely working, or it was working for a little bit and then died, and then he's been having some power problems with it and stuff. So he finally got it down here to us, and we're gonna fix it up and get it where it's working good and all of that. I've never played this one. It reminds me of Jubilee a lot. It's a Williams, and it has the captive ball thing in the middle. That's a cool feature that I liked. Some people don't like Jubilee. The knock on it is that there's not much to shoot at. This one actually has a little less than Jubilee because it doesn't have the kickers here, but it does have end lanes. I don't think Jubilee does. So we'll look at Jubilee as well, but we've done videos on Jubilee, and Darling is the same game as Jubilee. One's the 2-player, one's the 4-player. On Jubilee, as I understand it, the original design was there was going to be pop bumpers up here, and then 2 more pop bumpers here where these rollovers are. But they thought that it blocked the shot to the top, so they removed those. But it has this really cool feature right in the middle that pretty much dominates the game. This is kind of its one-trick pony, but let me see if I can get the ball out. I'll show you how it works. So there is, on Jubilee and Darling, I assume it's the same on this. It's a Williams game. It's the same mech. There is a setup that basically logic without, with just relay logic. No computer involved. This is all electromechanical stuff. At the beginning of the ball, it calculates which one of these has more balls in it. So like this one has 3 balls, this one has 2. If this one has 3, it lights up this light. If 3 or more were on this side, it would light up this light. So how does it know that? By the switch there. See how the 3rd ball is sitting on a switch? You can see the same switch on the right side. So that particular switch, whichever side that switch is pushed down on, must have more balls, right? So if there was 4 over on this side, that switch would still be pushed down. If there was only 2 on this side, then there must be 3 on that side, and there would be 3 there. If all 5 were on this side, then the 3rd switch would still be pushed down. So it lights up whichever light has the least amount of balls on it. And then if you knock all of the balls over to the lit side, you get the rocket special. So when you hit the freaking thing, it's like the old kinetic motion machine or whatever that's called, the little thing with the swinging balls. So when you hit it, it knocks the ball over to the other side. But then what if the next time you hit that side and it goes back? Oh no! And so this light will stay lit up this whole ball. And if you get all 5, now notice there is not a switch for the 5th ball. They have it tied to this switch. If the ball comes off that switch and there's a ball on that switch, when the ball hits that switch, it gives you the special, so you get an extra ball or whatever. And then after the ball ends, when it comes back up, it's going to light that light up because it's whichever one's harder. It's just a really cool little gimmick that they thought up. And on this one, it works pretty cool because it's a space theme. So I'm excited to play it, but we got to fix it first. Now, the first thing I noticed was it's got the wrong legs on it. So it's got little short legs. It should probably have 28.5-inch legs on it, and it's probably got 27-inch legs on it. There's only really 3 sizes mainly, but 27-inch legs are on Gottlieb machines. 28.5-inch legs are on Williams and Bally machines, Stern machines, a lot of them, and 31-inch legs are on some of the Gottlieb machines. So it just kind of depends. So it looks like they have put Gottlieb legs on a Williams. That would be my guess. It's just, I might be wrong about that. I don't know. Let's measure it. I am not wrong. Wrong legs, people. It's got the wrong legs. Makes it sit down just a little bit too low. It's about 1.5 inches too low. But the reason I figured that out is because the cart won't go under it very well. But that's okay. So they have painted this one. It looks like they've repainted the whole thing. You can't really tell till you get a little closer. And then you can see that they have painted the whole thing. See how the edges are all kind of messed up? That's from tape. Painter's tape, or tape that's not painter's tape, masking tape, where the paint is kind of leaching under the side of the tape. So it's a little off, but all in all, it looks pretty good. It's kind of like, the paint's kind of flat. So I think they used flat paint, which is okay to use, but you probably should put like a clear coat on it or something to make it a little more durable. Because this stuff will, if it's acrylic and it's flat, it'll just wash right off. So it looks pretty good though. It's a 5-footer. Here, let's get 5 feet away. It's a 5-footer, people. I've seen worse, like this one. It's worse. Literally the one right next to it's worse. It's a little dirty on this side. This is what I'm talking about. Like it gets, flat paint will get really dirty and then you can't clean it too well. But we'll see what we can do. So on top of that, they have repainted large sections of the playfield. You don't notice it at first, but then if you start paying attention, a lot of it's been redone. If we let the light hit it, you can tell better. So they did the same thing. They taped it off. So you can see those 2 arrows were redrawn in black. That looks like it may have been done last, so that may be actually, that may be acrylic paint, and that might come off if we wax it. And then there's white paint there. See how right around the letters it's yellow? Because the paint had yellowed over time. And when they repainted it back in, they used like a really white, Arctic white or something. It's a little bit too bright. But they did a pretty decent job. A lot of people I don't think would know. I mean, you can tell because I'm letting the light hit it. But from here, it's pretty clean. They did a good job with that. Which means they probably also did these. Yep, but again, pretty good job. The red has all been redone. So you see how thick that is? They probably cleared it. So they probably painted it with tape on it and then sprayed clear coat on it. Whenever I do clear, I don't use tape because it leaves a lip. See that little lip around the end? But this is a pretty decent job, really, for just touching it up by hand. You know, I think they did a pretty good job. So all of the red has been redone. Also the white. I think the teal is original. The light baby blue here is original. The dark blue is original. They touched up just a little bit of it. So it's the red and some of the white. If you look here, that would have been the same color white originally as the other parts. You can see the difference in just how it's faded. These games, they fade a lot over the years. Well, not really fade, but just kind of yellow. It's I don't know if it's the clear coat or the varnish that's in it, or if it's just the top layer of the paint has chemicals in it that do that, or what. So another thing that I see, oh, look up here. That's done pretty well. Pretty nice. I mean, it's not top end, but it's pretty good. It's not bad, I don't think. Another thing I see is that the flippers are probably dragging the playfield. So there are these little plastic pieces that go through the playfield that hold up the flipper. And if they start wearing, or if they get loose on the bottom, the flipper drops to where it's touching the playfield, and then you get this drag on the playfield. So we'll have to address that so that it doesn't keep tearing the playfield up. This side isn't as bad. Yeah, that's another thing. If the bushing gets loose, you can just do that. And so it may be like this, but then whenever it pulls in, it goes down and drags. Very common, though. That happens on a lot of games. Okay, now the back glass, at first glance, looks excellent. It's just a really cool design. I love this stuff when they do it all in like a limited color palette. So lots of blues and purples. It almost looks like, you know, they're in space and maybe they're in an area where the sun's not visible and so everything's dark. You know, it just looks so cool. Awesome, awesome. But if you get a little closer, you can tell that it's got some pretty severe flaking going on. Like there's large areas where there's a lot of flaking paint. Like see there where it's trying to come off. I haven't looked at the back of it yet, so I don't know how bad that is. See there? So that has been added by somebody probably when they were touching up this maybe. They just accidentally put some in the wrong spot. So it's probably been cleared before on the back and touched up a little bit. I think it'll probably look pretty good once we light it up. Another thing to think about too is these single player Williams games are just beautiful. Look, I like the skinny head on it. They even had some that were reverse wedge heads. I think they were Williams. The classic Gottlieb wedge head is wider at the top than at the bottom. But I think Williams made some that were backwards. Very cool. But I like that one player head on these things. If it's a one player game, it's a little simpler. It's not quite as much going on. Oh, and also the difference between SPACELAB and SPACELAB is this is the add-a-ball version. See how it says balls to play? So when you start on a regular game, it tells you ball 1, ball 2, ball 3, ball 4, ball 5, game over. But on an add-a-ball game, they were made for the markets where that was illegal. Now, how in the world could that be illegal? It's because they're called replay games, so you could win a free game. So if you won a free game, the game had value, and you just won something of value. That's gambling. You horrible lawbreaker. We got to stop that, right? So in certain areas, it was illegal to win a free pinball game. A 25-cent pinball game. And before that, a 5-cent pinball game. So they made these add-a-ball games where you won a free ball. But since it was in part of the game that you had already paid for, it didn't really have any value legally, financially. So they could get away with that. So it was just a little tiny workaround of some of the crazy pinball laws that were in effect in certain places. And so this is the add-a-ball version. It's kind of more fun to play the add-a-ball versions when you're at your house. Think about it. Let's say that this one has 5 balls, and it's a standard replay version. Well, when you play it, when your game's over, you have the opportunity, if you win the special, you could win an extra game. But you're playing it for free at your house. Now, some people do not agree with this at all. I know our buddy Mark that's watching, he does not agree with this, right? But some people, they still feel the joy of, oh, I want a free game, even though it's in your house and you're playing it for free. However, on an add-a-ball game, you start out with 5 balls. Well, if you lose one, it actually goes down. So it'll start at 5, and it'll go to 4. And then it'll go to 3. And then it'll go to 2. 2 balls to play, right? So there's only 2 balls left. and then you hit the rocket thing, and you get all 5 on this side. So you win a free ball. It will literally go from 2 to 3 right in front of you. And then I guess at that point on this, that it would probably light up over here. And then let's say you knock it back in the same ball. Well, now you went from 3 to 4, and you can actually go up and down and win more than one ball per game that you play. So because of that little design, the play fields are slightly different on the add a ball and the replay version. So there's probably just a couple little things that are different. There may be a light that says same player shoots again on the other one, but it's not on this one because you can win more than one ball on this one. So they're just interesting little machines. They're much more rare than the replay version, but they're not really worth all that much more money. So a really nice condition SPACELAB would probably be worth just as much as a nice condition SPACELAB. To the right collector, they may pay a little bit more for it, but it's not a thing where they're worth a ton of money. But they are kind of rare, so there may have only been a few hundred of this one, but there were a few thousand of the other one, right? So let me try to look up some of the numbers, and then I'll let you know. What was the other thing I was talking about that we would look up? Oh, yeah, I want to show you the playfield of Jubilee. So let me show you that, and then let's look up let's see if we can find how many of these were made. Okay, so I'm reading on the Internet Pinball database, and they're saying that for this particular game, Williams made 2 versions of the Add-A-Ball one. So they made SPACELAB, which is the regular replay version, and then they made it a very limited version that was kind of, they believe most of them were sent to Italy. There was only 30 of them made that was a SPACELAB. And then they made some that were SPACELABs that they converted just off of the line. So if somebody wanted an Add-A-Ball version, they just modified one of the regular ones a little bit, put a different back glass on it, and shipped it out. So that's very interesting. So it looks like there were 3,651 of them made, but they don't know if that's total for both types or if that's total for just the replay version. So whatever. But this is one of the ones that was converted at the factory, apparently. Let me show you what Jubilee looks like. So here is the Jubilee playfield. So notice at the top, you've got the same rollovers at the top, the 2 rollovers. You don't have the swinging target. There's a target that swings back and forth here on Jubilee. You don't have that. You have the same 2 pop bumpers in pretty much the exact same spot. You have the same unit in the middle with just a different plastic on top of it. You've got the same 2 arrows there. Right? And then down here on the bottom, this is slightly different. So on Jubilee, you have the 2 flippers, and you have these little, where the ball lands in here, and these little shooters actually shoot the ball at this thing in the middle. It's kind of hard to adjust them just right. Well, this SPACELAB came out a year later, and they got rid of this get-up and did a traditional 2 kickers with in lanes and out lanes. And you also have the 2 rollovers here. On ours, I believe they're a little bit higher. No, they're about the same spot. You have the 2 rollovers in the same spot, but it appears that on the original Jubilee, instead of having these 2 pop bumpers, there were going to be 4. But this one came out a year after Jubilee. It's pretty much the same thing. This is missing, just completely gone. And this is more traditional down here. So, pretty cool. All right, so I looked up all of the email conversation I had with this customer just to kind of refresh my memory of what was going on. He bought this game several years back, I think about 5 years ago. Again, because it's got the same name as his company does. And it worked great for a little while. And it started not starting up, not turning on, he said. So he bought some fuses online, a fuse kit. Beware of those fuse kits, people. It's better to just look in the manual or look in the schematics or inside the machine and buy what you need. But I think if we look inside here, we'll see why he wasn't able to do that. But he bought some fuses, put them in. It blew the fuses again, or he had problems with it. can't get the thing to work, and so he eventually got it to us, and we're going to fix it up for him. So one good thing about this particular game is since there's only 4 coils on the, or 5 coils counting the kicker on the whole playfield, it shouldn't be too much that can blow the fuse unless it's one of the relays is messed up or something. So I'm going to open it up, and we're going to look at the fuses. Whenever he brought it in, I think I already looked at that, and there was a issue that I noticed. So here's the issue. Someone has done some pretty extensive work to this where they've painted a bunch of stuff. So I guess the fuse thing came off. But if you're going to order fuses, this is the way to go if you can help it. Just order what it's actually got listed in the game. So it needs a 10, a 15, a 15, and a 10. 2 10s and 2 15s. So the 2 outside ones are 10s and the 2 insides are 15. You can see that a lot of this has been repainted. It's all been repainted, you know, around the posts. I don't think they took anything out though. They just painted around it. So it looks pretty cool. I mean, it looks clean. Usually whenever we look in these, there's just dust and dirt everywhere, so I can see why they did that. But it'll be interesting to see what our problem is. We'll work through it slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. Okay, so I guess we need to look at schematics and see what our voltages should be coming out of the transformer, and then maybe we'll check it with no fuses in it and go from there. What do you think? So let me find some schematics for it, and we'll check some stuff. Let's look in the back box though, just to make sure that nothing looks burnt up. Look, here's another one. So this is a fuse that's a circuit breaker, because it must have been blowing a lot. Okay. Not that big of a deal. Do I see anything burnt up? The 2 pop bumpers look fine. A lot of times you can tell if one's bad because it'll just be smoked. Not always, but a lot of times. There should be a big one up here. Yeah, it looks fine too. Yeah, I don't see anything jumping out at me. Oh, well, there's the obvious problem. Everything looks cool. Little 1-player back box, so there's not a ton going on. So like I said, there were 2 versions of this particular Add-A-Ball. One version was made just for Italy, and this is the replay meter. Here, let's see if it actually still says replay unit. Credit unit. Here's the credit unit. Usually there is a big wheel on the side here that tells you what number of replays you have. See the little window there in the front that's not visible through the glass? So they removed that wheel on the factory converted ones. Now, interestingly, here are the lights that say balls to play down there in the bottom, those 10 in a row that you need for the Add-A-Ball. So they're saying that the production replay version, this is the production replay version. They just modified it slightly to make it this Add-A-Ball version. But it's interesting that it had the 10 lights. I guess that would have been the match lights or something. No, they're up here. There's the match lights up there. So, interesting. So they made one machine that they were able to go replay version or Add-A-Ball version, however they wanted. But the version that they only made 30 of does not have this cutout for the replay unit. So this is not the most rare version of it. This is the one that maybe there's 1,000 of instead of 3,500 or whatever. Very cool. But I don't see anything in here that's obviously burnt up. Obviously a problem. Everything looks pretty cool. So I don't know why it would be blowing fuses, but you know what? We're going to find out. Okay, so here are the schematics. There is a big transformer in the bottom of the pinball machine, designated there on the schematics. And here is the power line running into the game. Okay, the black line comes over and directly attaches to the transformer. The yellow line comes over, goes through one of those 10 amp fuses, and then goes through an on-off switch on the bottom of the game, turns into a purple line. So yellow line into a fuse, which is in a red line, and then goes to the on-off switch, and then turns into a purple line, and then powers up the other side of the transformer. So once that is doing what it should, once this fuse is back in, we should have 6 volts between these two lugs and 24 volts between these two lugs. Now notice there is another winding here. You can move this line to here, which will raise this voltage up if your line voltage coming in is lower than 110. But no matter what you do, all of the coils will work through a 15 amp fuse. Okay, over here you have 2 fuses, a 15 amp and a 10 amp. So let's say you put the 10 amp fuse in, you will get these lights to come on as long as the transformer has power and it's got its voltages. If that fuse is in, you will get insert display lights to come on. The insert is the back box. All right, but that will never happen if the lock relay does not come in. So it could be that we're having lock relay problems, and that's why the game wouldn't start. So without the lock relay, all the lights are dead. Nothing will do anything. It could just be that his lock relay burned up, and then he started changing fuses, and that didn't fix it, and here we are. So, but that's a common thing, you know. I mean, if nothing's lighting up, you think, well, it's probably a fuse. But if you, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I don't want to insult anybody. What he did wasn't wrong. He just didn't know what he was doing. You know what I mean? He just assumed, well, let me try a fuse. This is a big, heavy machine. He don't want to lug this thing all the way down here to me to look at. He wants to try to fix it himself, but he doesn't have a lot of electrical knowledge, and he told me that in his emails, you know. So he did what he could think of. He got fuses. He went online. Somebody had a fuse kit, they said, for this machine, so he bought that, and he put them in, and then whenever he turned it on, it still didn't work. So it could be that it's not blowing fuses, it's just the lock relay doesn't work. Right? So it could just be a simple little thing like that. But now we're to the point, though, where there's no fuses, there's no lock relay. We've been messing around with stuff, you know. But it won't be a big deal. I mean, we're going to go through it and get the thing working and doing its thing. So I don't like criticizing previous repairmen, even if the previous repairman had no clue what they were doing, because they were just trying to fix the thing. You know, at least they tried. At least they did something. They could have just sat there and complained about it. But no, the guy tried to mess with it a little bit. He didn't get very far, but there's all kinds of stuff I don't know how to work on. I've been doing some videos lately working on clocks. I'm going to upload those. I have no clue what I'm doing with clocks, right? Right? Well, a clock repairman, if they're an idiot, they would say, "Oh, look at this dumbass. He doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, look, he shouldn't even mess with it." Well, I want to mess with it, you know? And that's how people learn. So this guy putting in the fuses, he could have burned up a bunch of stuff or something, but he was at least trying to learn. He was trying to get a little farther along. And so, you know, I don't like criticizing previous techs, even if there's somebody that had no clue what they were doing. Unless they just did something so egregious that the whole thing's ruined, right? We had that baseball game recently where the guy drilled a hole through the playfield, put a switch in there and all of this. And we got all kinds of views on that because people love it when you're negative. Whenever the title of the video is, "Operator drilled a hole right through the playfield," they watch the hell out of it because it's negative, right? Well, I'm not going to be negative about this guy taking the fuses out and putting the wrong ones in because I don't blame him. I would have done the same thing if I didn't know what I was doing. I used to work for an operator, and there was an old man at the office that was the pinball wizard, and I was the collector out on route. And whenever I went in, the pinball machine would have problems sometimes, and I did not know what I was doing. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I would call that old man, and it was like you were in for a fight when you called that guy, and he'd insult you and talk about just how you didn't know what the hell you were doing and get all frustrated because somebody's just asking a question, you know. And so I would have a coil that didn't work on the machine, and that guy had no ability at all to explain to me how to fix that coil. You know? So ultimately you'd have to pick the thing up and take it to the guy, and he'd fix it because it was just the transistor was burned up on the motherboard, and it wasn't that big of a deal. But he could not talk anybody through how to do it. He just didn't have that kind of skill. And I don't want to be like that. You know, I don't want to be the asshole saying, "Oh, what the fuse, buddy? It was the lock relay." You know, maybe it was the fuse. I don't know. You know, so you got to. I know I'm ranting, but I don't like it whenever people go negative on that kind of stuff. The guy was trying to fix it. He's confused over the fuses and stuff. But we're going to systematically work through it, figure it out, get the thing working again, and it ain't going to be that big of a deal. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this 10 amp fuse in, just that one. And the way I'm going to know which one it is because it's going to have a yellow wire and a red wire running to it. And I'm going to put a 10 amp fuse in, and then I'm going to turn on the on-off switch. And when I do that, I'm going to check the lugs on the transformer and see if these voltages are here. And if they are, then we know that part at least is happening, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I put the sticker back on there, and I can hear it humming. I put the 10 amp fuse in. I can hear it humming, so I think the transformer is on right now. Let me turn it back off. Yeah. Okay, so that must be off. If I turn it on, listen. That's the, you know, Hertz hum, I guess, going through the transformer. We'll leave it like that for a second. Okay, and also the fuse that I put in, that is a 10 amp normal blow fuse, not a slow blow. So you either have normal ones or slow ones. If it doesn't say slow, then it's normal. Normal, some people call them fast blow, as opposed to slow blow. It'll say slow blow if it's supposed to be a slow blow. Okay, so there's that. And the little sticker I put on. Have you seen this stuff? I have this on my website. Get you some of this. It's a glue stick. Now what's important, what's special about this glue stick? Apparently the sand solvent is good. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. But it's not made in China. It's made in Germany. Look at that. Holy moly. Strong and fast. It's Stark and Schnell, people. Get you some of this. I'm trying to put things on my website that are not made in the typical place. You know what I'm talking about? The place that we don't like, that none of us support. I'm gonna stop even saying their name, right? So good quality, American-made, German-made, Japanese-made products and stuff. So if you want a good glue stick, I've been using this for a while. It works great. Believe it or not, it's hard to get a glue stick that's made in the United States. Go figure. Go get you some of this. So I've got this and a bunch of things that we use whenever we do repairs on our machines and stuff on our website. Go to lionsarcade.com. There's a parts page up at the top. There's a bunch of links on there to items on Amazon and things like that that are made, that are quality items that we use. So that's our glue stick. I think they're like $1 or $2. Go get you some. So I put just a little, used a glue stick to put that little label back on. Because that label, you know, it's the vintage label, and it's kind of important that you know which one's which and where they go and all of that. But the reason that I knew it was the bottom one is because there is a red wire and a yellow wire across that fuse. I'm like 8 inches away, people. It looks like I'm touching it. I'm not. So that fuse has powered up the transformer. Now, if you look really close on the transformer itself, it is labeled to the voltages. See the C, that's common, and then see the 6 volts, that's 6 volts AC because it's coming out of a transformer, and then see the 24 volts, that's 24 volts AC. Now see how there are 4 lugs? There's an extra one there, that's that one that they call it the high tap. If you want to make your flippers stronger, your pop bumper stronger, everything in the machine stronger, you can move that line from there over to the high tap. But I don't really like to do that. Some people do it on every machine. I leave it alone. But you can do that to get a little more bounce in the ounce. Okay, so I'm going to get a multimeter, and we're going to see if we've got our 6 volts and our 24 volts, or if that transformer's toasted. Spoiler alert, the transformer is rarely toasted. Knock on plywood. All right, so I've got my trusty old fluke meter set on AC. So I'm going to put the ground or the black probe on the common, and then we're going to check our light bulb voltage, the 6 volts. So we've got 6.8 volts, and then if I go over to the 24 volt, we've got 29.82 volts. So notice those are real high. The reason they're high is because I've got more than 110 volts going in. You know, here in Rock Hill, we've got like 120 now, or something like that. It's 125 or 123. It's a thing. So the voltage going in's higher, and so the voltage coming out's higher. And also there's no load on it, so it's just running wild. It's like the Macho Man. So that transformer's fine. The pinball transformers are usually fine. I get people contacting me all the time, hey, where can I get another transformer? And they think that the transformer's messed up. They do mess up sometimes, but usually it's fine. One way to know if you've got a bad transformer, you might see a bunch of wax-looking stuff laying on the bottom of the cabinet underneath the transformer. And I don't mean like a little paste. I mean big heaps of stuff that looks like wax dripped out, like candle wax dripped out of the transformer. What's happened is the transformers got so hot that it started to melt, and that's what you're looking at. So that will kill the transformer. So I mean, they can be bad, but they're not usually, so far. You know, this one is only 50 years old. So the transformers lasted 50 years. That's good. All right, so I'm going to turn it off, and then we're going to try putting our light bulb fuse in it and go from there. All right, so we put the other 10 amp fuse in, which is the other one. The wire colors lined up. Now, you don't have to be all this slow and pedantic about it. I'm just trying to, like, you know, show the basics of it. And it says on the label 6 volt, so that tells you that it's the light voltage. 10 amp, which is the one for the back box. Now, if we turn it on, let's see if it blows that. Okay, it did not blow it, but remember, the only way that it can work is if the lock relay pulls in. So let's see if we can get some life out of this sucker. If I pull in the lock relay, we should get lights on the back box. And it's not blowing the fuse when I hold that in. Very cool. So let's do the other light one. Okay, so I put in the other 15 amp one. Let's turn on the power, see if it blows it. It really can't right now because the lock relay isn't on. So when I pull the lock relay on, it's going to throw juice to all these lights on the playfield and still on the back box too. So let's see if it blows the fuse once they're energized. It did not. Very cool. All right, so now we can do the one for the coils. So the reason that the one for the playfield lights was 15 amps and the one for the back box lights was 10 amps is because there's just more lights on the playfield. Okay, so I put in the 4th fuse, the final fuse, which is, it runs the 24 volts to all of the coils in the game. Right? If any coil is burnt up, it'll probably blow that fuse. The playfield, though, remember that coil, that fuse I took out of the playfield, so maybe nothing on the playfield will do it. We also need that fuse so that the lock relay will hold itself in to hold the lights on. Okay, so we'll turn it on and see if it blows the fuse. It did not. Now, did you hear the click? So what you heard was the game over relay pull in. Now, why would it do that? Here's the game over relay trip. So what had happened was the game over relay was on. It can go either way. It trips and it latches. It latches when you're in the game, and it trips when the game is over. So the game, the last time they played it, they must have been in the middle of a game when whatever happened, or whenever they turned the machine off. So they have this neat little circuit in where when you turn the game on, power starts running through this joint. And if the game over relay is latched, because you're in the middle of a game, that switch will be closed. And then if the lock relay has not pulled in yet because you just turned the game on, it will end the game by clicking that. That's that click you heard. You heard the power running through here because it was in the middle of a game, through the lock relay, which wasn't on because we just turned the game on, so the switch is normally closed, and it energized that game over relay trip. So as soon as it did that, I suppose it opened that. I guess. So that went down. That's what's going on. So we've got juice, we know, at least in the bottom of the machine. So how do we turn on the lock relay? So that all of our lights will light up. Remember, I was pulling that in by hand, and we already saw all the lights light up, right? So how do you turn on the lock relay? Well, there's several ways. Power comes to it through here. This is going up to the transformer that we looked at earlier. Power comes through there. And if you drop a quarter in it, oh, I'm on the wrong spot. Power comes through there. And as long as the kickoff switch isn't open, which is the one on the bottom, when the score motor starts turning, it will hit a switch that will turn on the lock relay. Or if you drop a nickel in, the 5-cent relay will turn on the lock relay. The lock relay can hold itself on, so once it pulls in, there's a switch on it that closes and holds itself on until you hit the kickoff switch. But the way you turn it on is you hit the left flipper switch. It's just a cool little setup that they designed a long time ago. So if you start a game by hitting start or something, it will start this turning and the lock relay will come on. Or if you drop a nickel in it, it'll turn on the nickel relay and it'll start the lock relay. Right? If you drop a quarter in, or it takes more than a nickel to start the game. So if you drop a quarter in, it will start the score motor and that will do it, right? But the way we're going to do it, because we just want to look at it, is we're just going to hit the left flipper switch. All right, so it's on. You can hear it. And if you look at the right flipper switch, there's just 2 wires running to it, to 2 blades of a switch. But if you look at the left flipper switch, it has that same setup, but there's an extra switch on it. And that switch, the whole purpose of it is to turn on the lock relay. So let's see if we get some fireworks. There it is. Huh. Well, it's back alive, people. It says there's 1 ball left to play, but it's tilted. It looks pretty good. The playfield is lit up. We're seeing some life from it, but we still got to work through it and figure out what in the world happened. Why did the thing stop working? Why did he feel like he needed to buy new fuses? Why was there a test breaker fuse there? So we're going to figure out what the problem was, work through it, play through it a little bit, and we'll do that on the next video. So I hope you enjoyed it so far. Hopefully that'll help you if you've got fuse problems. Leave your comments below. What do you think about this machine so far? I think it's a pretty cool machine. It's cooperating, people. It wants us to help it. We're doing what we can, and it's helping us when it can, right? Look at it. Look at it in all of its glory. So leave your comments below. Let us know what you think so far. I'm enjoying it. Make sure to give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to check out my brother, Donnie. My brother has his own channel here on YouTube. The link is down below. I'm over there with him on his channel a lot, doing crazy stuff. Go check that out. And we will see you in a couple days where we'll work through the rest of this machine.